Hey, are you struggling with porn? Is porn taking up too much of your time? Is this becoming an unhealthy habit? Is porn ruining your relationships with the ones that you love the most? Are you becoming somebody that you never thought you could be? Is the lying, the shame, the pain, the regret, is it getting old? Is it time for a change? If you are interested in starting this journey of recovery and reclaiming your life, you have come to the right place. I'm your host, Mac, and this is the Porn Free Millennial Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to the Porn Free Millennial Podcast. This is your host, Mac, and it's been a little bit of time since my last podcast. I was back in July. Wanted to say, if you're a new listener, really appreciate you being on. Thank you. And for returning listeners, what's up? We're back with another episode, so I hope you enjoy this one. Real quick, I've been traveling a lot. Quick, synopsis of my life the past few months. So I got divorced from a 5-year marriage back in March. And at that point, I decided, hey, I want to live my life differently. So I bought an RV that you can drive. It's a Class C mobile home. And my dogs and I, we left from Colorado, where I'm from, back at the end of June. And since then, we've been traveling the country. So we made it all the way down from Colorado all the way down to Key Largo, Florida, which is in the Florida Keys. So that's like really south, basically almost the very bottom of the U.S. And started to make it up the East Coast in a way. So went to Charleston for a little bit and was close to Raleigh for a couple of weeks, and now I'm in Asheville, North Carolina, and I've been here for a couple nights. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love it. Being from Colorado, just seeing the Blue Ridge Mountains and just how gorgeous they are, especially when the sun comes up and the sun comes down. Oh my gosh, absolutely gorgeous. So just want to share, I've been traveling a lot, so I would say, like, just with this schedule and energy levels and change of routine, it's just been a little bit tough. I wanted to take some time to really, to be in the right mindset to provide another podcast. And this one's actually going to be focused on tools that you can use actually every day. So I'll go ahead and get into it. The episode today is focused on FASTT Check-Ins. So FAST is an acronym, so it's FASTT, and these are check-ins. So these are meant to be like verbal check-ins that you would do with somebody, like an accountability partner is kind of what I would say I call it. You can call it, really whatever you want, but somebody that you know and trust is preferred, that you can check in with. If that's not going to float your boat, you can also do this with yourself, like if you're into journaling or, daily meditations, things like that. And this is just a great way to check in with yourself to see how you're doing. So with that being said, what we're going to do today, a little bit of a summary before we go into this, or an outline, so to speak, is I'm going to give a definition for the acronym itself. So we're going to kind of go like one letter at a time. Then we're going to talk about, how to actually do a check-in and who to do it with, because I think you do have to be selective on who you want to do check-ins with. You want them to be meaningful in your life. So Before we get into the definitions, really quick, I just want to give credit where credit is due. So I first came across the FASTT Check-In through the Porn Free Radio podcast. Really one of my inspirations to write and to podcast. The host, his name's Matt Dobschutz. I had the pleasure to actually be in one of his groups. I guess it's kind of funny to say that. Like, I'd rather would have not have been in a porn recovery group, but I'm happy that I started with his. So actually was able to meet him remotely. I haven't met him in person, but really just a great leader in this space. Someone, I aspire to be or aspire to follow, as the years progress. He really is, I would say, one of the OGs in, I'd say, like the porn, porn-free podcast realm. So he really introduced this concept, I think, in one of his episodes. And also, he does have a website. It's called Recovered Man, where, if you're interested in any kind of group coaching or individual coaching, you can check that out. Definitely would highly recommend it. So he introduced this to me, and I'm going to go ahead and share my interpretation of it. Might not be completely the same as his, but this is the way really I interpret these check-ins. So we'll go ahead and get started. So in the FASTT Check-In, first you start with F. So when you're doing your check-in with your accountability partner, or if you're doing this personally with yourself to start off with, so F starts for feeling. So when you're getting started, you first want to check in with your internal emotions. It's a great place to start because it kind of sets the tone and the temperature for your check-in. Now, feelings, they could be positive feelings, could be negative, but I really want to challenge you to put it into one word, one feeling. There's a great resource that I have. I can see if I can link to it. I actually got this from another name drop. My mentor, who's also a OG in the porn podcast realm, his name's Vern Tomke. He has the Finding Traction podcast, and his website's Band of Brothers Care, or bandofbrothers.care. And I'm actually going through individual coaching mentorship with him through his program, and it's fantastic. Vern's a fantastic guy. Another person I'd like to meet in person someday, and one person that I would like to aspire to be and to emulate. So he actually shared with me this visual that I can see if I can link to, but it's a feelings wheel. It's a really great resource, and you could probably Google it. It's called the Feelings Wheel. It looks like it's from PhD Marshall Rosenberg. That's where that's the source of the feeling wheel. But basically, you want to start off with the temperature of where you're at when you're checking in. You're kind of rating, where your emotions are at. So, for instance, I'd say you can separate them into two categories. You can share your feeling when you're not getting your needs met, and you can share your feelings when you are getting your needs met. So I'm going to share some examples of when you are getting your needs met first, and then I'm going to share some examples of when you're not getting your needs met. So these are feelings that you can start off with in your check-in. So when you are getting your needs met, you can be proud, joyful, intrigued, trusting, loving, peaceful. When you're not getting your needs met, some examples are angry, disgusted, afraid, surprised, sad, ashamed, annoyed. It's really important when you do this as a practice. Be honest. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't just act like everything's fine. If you're not feeling good, share it. That's super important, because if you start off your check-in by just saying what you think the other person wants to hear, you're not really helping yourself. So it's really good to do that, and trust me, it's a learning process as you go. I sometimes feel like, and I just use the word when I do my check-ins, that I kind of ramble on a little bit on feeling, because sometimes it's hard to put it into one word, but you want to stick with a theme, something consistent, on something honest of how you're doing. So really, it's important to share how you're feeling, as setting the temperature for the call. And you can, when you share how you're feeling, I think it's okay to provide an example of like why. I think that helps shed light when you're doing your check-in on maybe some of the reasons for why you're feeling that way. Sometimes I would say, like, as an example, if I'm feeling maybe a little bit annoyed or irritated, it could be because I didn't get a lot of sleep the night before, and I've got some tough projects I got to work on the next day. That's an example. Or on the flip side, if I'm feeling really proud, it could be, hey, I got a lot done today, and I'm feeling real good. I'm feeling really proud of what I accomplished. So those are some examples there. Next, we'll go into actions and recovery. So that's A. So these are really active commitments that you're taking that are moving you forward in recovery. So how I would define this is, hey, like, what are some healthy habits that you're putting in the place of porn? I think some examples of that for like actions and recovery would be, going on walks outside, exercising, eating healthy. Big ones, reducing screen time on your phone and social media. It could be reading books, spending more time with your family, with your friends, or your partner, significant other. Getting sleep is huge. Oh my gosh, it's probably one of the biggest ones. I'd say one of the biggest actions is just getting a good 7 to 8 hours of sleep. It really helps with a lot of things. There's a really good book out there. It's called, I think, Sleep by Matthew Walker, but the whole book's about just how important it is to get that 7 to 8 hours just for your overall health and the longevity of your life. It's an important part of recovery and important part of your life. And I think kind of tying into that is actions in recovery. It's not just about quitting porn and avoiding porn and not having porn in your life. It's actually what are you doing to move forward? It's not just moving away from porn. It's what actions are you taking to actually move forward in your life and to grow in your life and to achieve things and to make progress. That's what it's all about. I definitely would recommend starting small. I think one thing that I've suffered from, and I know a lot of people do, is when we're doing actions in recovery, we always start off just so big. It's always just something kind of crazy, like a huge laundry list of things that you're like, okay, I'm going to get all this stuff done every day. And if I do this every day and I get this done every day, then, there's no way, I'm going to ever look at porn again. And that always fails just because we do it for 1 or 2 days and we just get completely exhausted and burnt out. Then we're ashamed and we feel bad because we couldn't get those goals and habits done. And then we just go back to porn because, we're trying to fill that trying to fill that gap where we feel sad, or we feel like we let ourselves down, we feel depressed, and then we go to porn to, as that tool to make us feel better, to numb that pain. Because, porn really, and this is something that Matt Dobschutz shared before in his podcast, and it kind of sounds counterintuitive, but it makes a lot of sense, is, porn's really the solution, right? It's the solution that we've had for such a long time. It's the solution to our pain. It's a solution towards getting turned down. It's a solution, that can solve just about any kind of negative emotion. And that's the lie that we tell ourselves and that we have been living. But nonetheless, porn is used really as that solution. So really, when you frame it that way, what are some actual healthy things that can be the solution in your life? And start small, because it typically takes 1 to 4 months to really build a habit and to build a good habit. So it's going to take time. So what my advice would be is just to be patient and keep it simple. Like literally just maybe for a week, just say, hey, I want to get outside like once a day and go on a walk around the block, or maybe a certain amount of steps, and just like set the bar somewhere that you can hit, because when you hit it, then you can start building off of that and you can feel accomplished. If you start super high and you can't even hit it in the first place, you're just going to feel demoralized. So that's actions in recovery. So typically, with that, I would say, like, it's kind of like you want to set that up, with your accountability partner when you get started. I think you want to like kind of push each other to maybe have like 2 or 3 things that you want to focus on for a set amount of time, and hold each other accountable to that. When I'm checking in with my accountability partners, there's kind of a theme where we kind of know, hey, this is like what I'm working on. These are my actions, and this is what you're working on. But then again, sometimes things come up where you might find something new that's really helping you out, that you might integrate and you might share in your check-in to say, hey, like today, I ended up volunteering at the food bank, and that was an action towards recovery because, it really, inspired me, to get more involved in the community. Things like that. Hey, I woke up and I went on a run today. That's an action towards recovery. So it's kind of two-part. It could be habits that you set, or if you're not quite there yet, it could be just, something that you did that was healthy in place of that porn habit. And it can also be a mixture of that too. There's really no set guideline on this, but these are just some things in my mind that I typically talk about when I'm doing my check-ins. So that was actions in recovery. All right, next we're going to get to kind of the tough one, the fun one, sarcastically. So this is slips and sobriety. So this is the S in the FAST. So this is where it gets a little bit tough because, obviously this isn't like really the fun part, especially like if you lose your sobriety, that's always tough, no doubt about it. And then slips, I think those are tougher in a way, whereas like with sobriety, in some ways you feel, I think initially like you just have to start all over. I think slips, they're a little bit more tricky because you really got to kind of dig deep to figure out like what a slip is for yourself and like how to define that. So I'll do my best here. I think for slips, if you're gonna like look at green light, yellow light, red light, actions in recovery, I would say it's the green light. Like it's good, go, keep going, move forward. The yellow would be a slip. So yellow is kind of like that caution. It's kind of telling you, hey, red light's coming up soon, and it's on the horizon. You can kind of see it ahead, and you need to start slowing down. You need to come to a stop because you're about ready to blow through this red light. And I think this is really like a slip is kind of like where you start to lose momentum. These are actions that are more or less kind of like the inverse of your actions in recovery. Like these are things that work against it. I would say it's really like you're edging around what your red line is, like what you consider to be, over the line for yourself, what you consider to be like a relapse, what you consider to be, losing your sobriety. The slip is really like edging around that. Like you're getting close, but you're not quite there, but it's this repetitive thing. You're kind of stuck in this like preoccupation stage to where, you just keep going back to it. Now for, I'd say like certain examples I can provide, really some pretty clear ones would be like if you were searching the name of somebody that you've looked up before and you keep going back to it, or if you're kind of going on unsafe sites, or even like safe sites, but you're just kind of searching for things, or maybe there's certain apps, like I know like the YouTube Shorts, TikTok Shorts, Snapchat, all those feeds are danger. Like if your algorithm's not set up right, like, and you're going in there, like obviously you're probably going in there knowing that you're probably going to see something. I would call that like a slip. It's basically like where deep down inside that this is not sound activity. If you're in recovery, it's working against your recovery. Remember that. So, other things, it could be, I think, like lying about the little things. That's definitely like a slip. It could be, failing to maybe stick with your set actions. So if you're like really we're hitting the gym hard and you're doing really well with your action recovery, and then you just stopped going because you weren't getting enough sleep, like losing momentum in those habits, you could also see that as a slip, because it's not just all about just like whether or not like you looked at porn, you masturbated. It's also like, are you moving forward again in your recovery? Like, are you moving forward? Are you starting that new chapter where you have that clear sense of purpose and you're striving towards something? And then other things, it could just be like checking somebody out for a really long amount of time. Being preoccupied mentally with sexual thoughts that are really just getting in the way of you functioning, like getting in the way of you working, of communicating with others, of having relationships. That's a list of slips. So hopefully that helped defining it a little bit. So the other S would be sobriety. So this is like your red line. This is telling you, hey, stop. Like once you're at that red light, it becomes a lot harder to stop, because you've already been edging your way basically through the intersection, and you're not really slowing down, and you're about ready to run that red light. So something that's really important for sobriety is to like define like what it is. Like, what is sobriety for you? Like, what is like a relapse? Relapse is basically, kind of more or less losing your sobriety. So I'd say for me, just as an example, masturbating, watching pornography through photos, videos, GIFs, etc. That's like my red line. We live in a world now where you got to be a little bit realistic with just culture, and if you watch anything on TV or on streaming, there's a good chance that something might pop up. And for me, like if something comes up and I'm watching something and I just continue on and I don't stick on it, I don't really count that as a relapse. I definitely check that in with my accountability partner, but I would say like when you're sucked into the gravity hole and you're in there, that's when you're about to go through that red light, like where you're preoccupied and you're going back to old habits that you knew were problematic. That's how I would define it. And I think it's just really everybody has their own, stop, their own red light, their own line in the sand, their own place where they know, like if I stop here and I turn back, hey, I'm still holding my sobriety, but I got a lot of stuff to work on. But if I keep going, I got to kind of restart, if I'm counting the days or whatnot, and that's the way that I define it. But that could be different for everybody, I kind of frame my podcast, and I frame a lot of this advice through like, my experiences and experiences that I know like from other people. And what I'd say is like a problematic porn use for me is just like you can't stop, you get sucked in, before you know it, you're staying up really late, you're missing time with people, because you just can't stop looking at it. You can't stop, it's multiple times a day. That's really where I've been at before. And that's a spot I don't want to be back at, and that's what I'm trying to recover from, right? But yeah, just be honest. Be honest with the fact of, hey, whatever this is, whatever this red line is, I know that after it, I'm going to feel empty. I'm going to feel terrible. I'm going to feel upset. Just insert that negative feeling. For me, it was feeling numb. That's like what I know will happen after I relapse, after I cross that line. I know it will happen for a fact. And that's what I always remind myself. So just think about in your past, like the negative feeling that you feel afterwards, and like what were you doing at the time. And I think that's a good way to define sober. And just to add, like, it's really important to remember that this is a journey, guys. Uh, this is a tough journey. It's not easy. This is really hard. I think through my travels, I've had discussions with people. The discussions come up, where I talk about being porn free, and it's almost like they've met like a ghost, or they've seen like an alien. They're like, "What? Who are you? Like, what are you doing?" Some people are shocked. I've had people like freak out, like in a weird way, to where they're like, "I love porn," and they storm off. Others are like, "Wow, like that's really awesome. Like, good for you." And then the others that I've met, like, have shared their own story with it, and it's crazy. Like, I've met so many. It's not really crazy, because I think I know that especially a lot of men have struggle with this, but I think the crazy part is being able to have conversations with people. And you'd be surprised that, like, when you're just open and talking to somebody, and you come at it a place of not judgment and just sharing your experience, people will also open up too. And it's for me, it's like I'm just validating that this is a problem that people struggle with. But I just share that just because it's a journey. I think uh, this journey will, most people, in my opinion, men, will have to face this at some point or the other in this world, just with the culture that we live in. And I think if you choose to face this head on and with courage, like, hats off to you. And we're brothers in this, we're sisters in this. Like, we're together, we're a family. We have each other's backs. That's my feeling about this. And just remember, it's a journey. So if you fall down, you relapse, the most important thing to do really is just to get back up and just get after it the next day and learn. Hey, like, what drove me to this? Like, why did I have a relapse this time? And I think that's really important. And it's okay. It's okay to fail. That's how we learn, right? I've had slips on my trip to where I felt like I was really close to losing it. I was really close to losing my sobriety. And I really had to think about, like, okay, well, like, what led me to that path? And if I was to just re-listen to all my voice memo check-ins that I've sent my little brother, sure, you can just piece together, and I have, like, pieced together, like, why, like, I got to that point. And you're typically going to find that in your check-ins if you're being honest with yourself. And I wanted to share this quote. It's from Samuel Beckett, and again, credit to Matt Dobschies. He also says this. It's a great quote. It's try again, fail again, fail better. And I think what that means to me is it's a mindset thing. It's a complete mindset thing with slips and sobriety. You can look at it in one way and feel ashamed and feel guilty, like, and that's probably how I've felt for at least 20 years of my life. I'm 32. I'd say 10 was the first time I was exposed to porn. I mean, really, when I started to think about it, I mean, it was probably more in high school of it being an issue, but I never really thought of the mindset of fail better, of saying, hey, like, I failed, how can I be better next time? How can I improve? How can I move towards recovery, not away from it, right? So hopefully that quote can stick with you. Try again, fail better. It's just a fantastic quote. And I think it really puts things in perspective of recovery, because it's not about the numbers. I think it's good to, when we're starting off, and it's still good, like, even down the road. I know there's some guys out there that are been sober for, a decade or two. So it's good to always remember that. But at the end of the day, it's really about your attitude and what way you're moving. Are you moving backward? Are you moving forward? So bottom line, be honest when you're doing these check-ins, and be honest about your slips. They can be little tiny things too. It doesn't have to be some big thing. It can just be like, hey, like I check out at the gym today, a little too long. Check that in with your accountability partner. It might be kind of weird at first. Like I know, like my brother and I, we check in with each other every day. We'll sometimes share crap that's just like it would seem so stupid on the outside, but when you're really digging into recovery, like you kind of see things at this micro level where you're like, wow, like yeah, like that kind of triggered me a little bit, like that kind of caused me to stop for a second, like rethink my recovery. And hey, I'm going to check it in, because when you're checking it in, you're verbalizing it, that you're already doing like half the work right there. You're putting it out there that this is something that you're aware of. Now, when you don't do that and you hold it inside, you're working against yourself. You're working backwards. You're not working forwards. So that's sobriety, that's slips. We got two more. We got threats to recovery. So I would say threats to recovery, if we're going to use this intersection example, it could be like hazards in the road. It could be maybe something with your car. It could be maybe the weather outside. Something that might cause you to run that red light, that might cause you to go in the intersection when it's yellow. Those would be threats. So this is a practice of looking forward, being proactive. It's not talking about the past, it's talking about the future. Hey, I'm putting forward a plan to recognize these threats. Threats to my sobriety, threats to me moving forward. So a few examples of that I would share personally would be, a lot, like a big one for me, normally for a threat for me, is just sleep. I still struggle with it. Literally I'm recording this podcast pretty late right now. So I think sleep for me is a big deal. And I will check it in. And if I keep checking in that as a threat, clearly I need to do better with my actions in recovery, right? But threats, for me it'd be sleep. It could be like work, maybe bleeding, into my, life outside of work. Maybe I'm spending too much time stressing about work, and it's really affecting like my areas of recovery that maybe I want to be working out more, but I can't because I'm just working so much. So that could be a threat to my recovery. Other things would be like, maybe like a traumatic experience happens. So, if somebody passed away, if, or like a pet, or, maybe someone you knew, like something happened, that can really cause like some negative emotions to come up, right? And like I said earlier, with porn being the solution, it's going to be like on your mind to say, oh my gosh, I feel so sad, or I feel terrible. Like I feel like everything's out of my control and I just feel hopeless. Well, here's one thing I can go to that is free, that's accessible, that's going to give me that dopamine, that's going to give me like that rush, and I'm going to go to that. That's a threat. It could be like relationship struggles, tough conversations, just consistently just having a negative outlook on things. And like preoccupation with unsound activities are a really big threat. So that would be, maybe you're doing some edging, and then you stopped, but then you picked it back up again, and you picked it back up again, and then you picked it back up again. It could be certain apps. There's definitely been times where I've just deleted apps off my phone because I just couldn't handle it. Just like if I was like edging on like a social media like feed, like one of those feeds, like I was saying, like YouTube Shorts or like TikTok, and I was finding that I was having slips, I would acknowledge that as, hey, like looking forward, like this is definitely a threat for me, and I need to do something about it. Like I need to delete this. I need to just take a break from it for a while because I can't even handle the app itself. It also could be like websites that you go on that, oh, I'm just looking at this, but in the background, I'm also looking at this. That's a threat. So hopefully that kind of helped hammer home the point. It also could be like in real life too. It could be maybe objectifying or sexualizing people that you know. If you're in a relationship, it could be, being flirty or, something of that nature. There's a lot of different things that could be threats. But I would say, as you work through this, start to kind of play with that and look ahead, try to understand what are like your triggers, like what triggers you to look at porn, like what triggers you to get into this mode to where you're kind of sucked in, you're pulled into it. So those are threats. The last T are tools. So the tools would be how like you actually combat those threats. So we got your actions in recovery, but then we have your tools. Those are more geared towards, okay, we're talking about the future, talking about this future threat. What kind of tools can I use to combat that threat? Basically stop it in its tracks, neutralize that threat, right? So this would be like if you're, again, using the intersection example, like if it's really snowy and icy, drive slower. If it's really rainy, make sure that your windshield wipers are on. If your car is having an alignment issue, go get your alignment fixed. It's really like kind of that maintenance, more of those tangible kind of things, those practical things that you can do. So I'm going to tell you, like, when I was in the process of getting divorced, I had this like, it was like a 2-3 weeks streak where I just kind of lost control. I was porn free for a decent amount of time. I would say like 6 months leading up to, kind of this relapse. And oh my gosh, it was just awful. I felt so depressed. I got really low, guys. Like, I'm not even joking, I got really low, and maybe we can talk about that in a different podcast, but just incredibly low. And just, was looking at porn and just not even enjoying it, just feeling so sad. And it's because it was the saddest I ever felt in my life. So of course I was going to this stuff and just kind of felt like I gave up, and I started work with Vern, kind of like late January and February, and I was just struggling. It just felt like I was a broken record. Like, it's like I couldn't like hold my sobriety together. And one thing that Vern like really kind of, I'll always kind of remember this. He just said, "Hey, like, I think you really need to put some kind of like software like on your phone, on your laptop, because your willpower is going to come and go. But if you can like look at some practical like methods to reduce reduce this and make it hard, make it impossible, then you should do it." And like right when I got off that call, well, he kind of told me a few times, and finally when it hit me, I'm like, okay, like I got off the call, and like right away I put accountable to you on my computer. And that's like basically a software. I put that on my computer and my iPhone. And that's a software basically where, it tracks like web searches or like certain like apps that you're putting on your phone that are unsound. And what it does is it actually will send like real time updates to whatever accountability partner you choose. And so if you're looking up stuff online, it will literally send a text to like your accountability partner. And it's done that before, like where it's done that with like my little brother and Vern, and they're like what the heck's going on. It's done that before too, like where I've gone on like my Substack and I type in porn free millennial, and that it's good that it works, but it's kind of funny sometimes. They'll be like, "Are you doing okay?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, just on working on my podcast. But I think that's helpful because it actually, like, I don't want like my little brother like seeing like some porn star's name that I'm looking up. Like, I don't want that. Or my mentor who is like an OG in the porn podcasting game. Like that's just embarrassing. So like that in its own nature for me, like it kind of like neutralized like a lot of the want and the desire to go to it, because I'm like, oh crap, well if I do that, like that's kind of embarrassing. And then if I work around it, then I'm really just being dishonest, and it's kind of like wasting my time, wasting my money with this app. So I got that. Also, you can look at like Covenant Eyes, Bark. I think there's a few other out there that you can look up. I would just Google accountability software, like for like for porn or things like that. Also you can look at ad blockers. So those will actually like reduce and basically um, stop any like unwanted ads, and you can put settings on there too to like for like sexual images and stuff, so those don't come up. So the one that I use is ad blocker, or sorry, ad guard, and I've been using that since February, as well as accountable to you. So other things that you can do, you can take a break from social media. So like I was talking about, there's like a certain app, like I'm not going to name all of them, but if there's some that, maybe you use for educational quote unquote purposes, but it becomes more of a sex education purpose than, or anatomy course, I would definitely, recommend that you take a break from it. You can live without an app on your phone, and take a break. And I've had times like where I've just have taken long breaks, and yeah, at first it's a little bit interesting. Like you might give up some social contact, but at the end of the day, like what's more important, like your recovery, like you living, with meaning and purpose, or just using this social media app, that really, how much purpose does it bring? Most of the time, we get so sucked into these things that it actually just makes our heads hurt, and makes us feel like more anxious. At least that's what it does to me. Time limits on your phone, that's a really good one. So you can set certain time restrictions up. So maybe certain minutes you can be on a social media app, or just online in general. Also times to shut down your phone use at night. So like literally that's just a physical thing you can do, is to say, hey, I'm gonna put my phone in a different room, or I'm gonna put on do not disturb mode, maybe at like 10 o'clock at night. And that's your shutdown period. That's when you just don't use it. That's a great method there. Setting up like rewards and consequences linked to your adherence to your own rules is good too. I know that something that helped me, like when I was getting sober and getting on track, 6 months ago, was setting up like rewards. So like every month I wrote down in my calendar, like on my phone, like a reoccurring, like, hey, this is like you're going to be porn free for 2 months. Hey, you're going to be porn free for 3 months. And with it would actually be a reward. So it'd be like, I think the first thing that I bought was a hat. And then the next thing I bought was a pair of shoes. And it was kind of just, rewarding myself, saying, hey, good job, dude. And, also you want to have consequences. I think one of mine was like giving up a certain app for like a month. One I put down before was a flip phone. And I think I had to kind of just change that because of work and stuff. But I think if it really got bad, I could see myself getting a flip phone. But I think you just like want to set something reasonable for consequences, and something too that also like sucks, like something that you don't want to do. Like if you're like, well, I'm just gonna give up, chocolate for a month, but you don't eat chocolate. Well, you're kind of just being a cop out. So don't do that. So hopefully, I think like those tools made sense. Again, those are tools to combat those future threats. So again, if we're going to use that intersection example, there's a hazard in the road, there's something wrong with your car, the weather's bad, you need to make sure that you're being aware of your environment and saying, hey, I need to take proactive action here so that I don't blow through this red light. I don't enter on the yellow light. I go through on the green light, and I go through with safety. I go through with confidence. and boom, you're through the intersection. So now that we talked about what a fast check-in is and what it means, now we're going to talk real quick about how to do it and who to do it with. So, I mean, these are meant to be collaborative. These are meant to do with somebody, I would say, that you trust, or maybe somebody that's on the same path as you. I developed when I was in Matt Dobschute's Recovered Man, called a Rev group. It was kind of encouraged to break off and have check-ins with other people in the group. So that's what I did. So if you're like in a group, or maybe you're like in a church group, or, you have a group of friends you trust, that'd be one way you could do it. You really want to pick somebody that you respect, or maybe someone that you see has, a positive growth mindset, that's looking forward, that's not, stuck and just going through the motions. You really want to be able to push yourself and push that other person. Because at the end of the day, it's about growth. And it is about being vulnerable. It is about, talking about things that normally you don't want to talk about. Like that's the purpose of these. Again, someone that is going to have your back and you'll have their back. So it's a two-way street. So that's like if you're going like peer to peer, I would say. Other ways you can do it too, like I have a mentor. So like I said, Vern Tomke with bandofbrothers.care. He's like, it's more of like a peer to mentor situation, or a mentee to mentor situation, to where it's more of me checking in and doing a fast check-in with him versus him doing it back to me, because he's further along in recovery. Like, the real purpose is for him to provide me more feedback and me more guidance on where I'm going, and to kind of evaluate where I'm at. Maybe call me out if I'm not being honest, or if I'm not staying true to like what my plans are. So it's also great to have a mentor. And then maybe sometime down the line, when you're really hitting your stride, you could be a mentor to somebody else. So for me personally, I'll just share real quick. I do a check-in every day with my little brother. Love him to death. He's my best friend, and we've really connected. I'd say like during the marriage, during during that time, we grew apart a little bit, and it's kind of crazy how this stuff happens, but like both of us have struggled with porn, and it's really brought us so much closer together than I could ever imagine, and it's been a blessing in my life. And it really, like, this is probably like one of the main reasons I wanted to share the fast check-in, was just to share, like, I don't think I'd be here without him and without these daily check-ins. Like, they really I look forward to them every day. I look forward to hearing his. I look forward to giving mine. And it's just really helped me on my journey. It's really helped me keep me on keep me on the path, keep me from regressing. I will tell you that my brother has FaceTimed me before, where I texted him saying, hey, like, I think I'm about ready to give up. I think, I'm about to relapse. Like, I'm kind of about ready to go through that intersection. And he FaceTimed me, and we would talk, and got me out of it. And that's happened, I think, twice. And yeah, if you're listening, love you, brother. But I just want to share that, because that's what it's all about. It's about vulnerability. It's about companionship. It's about brotherhood. It's about camaraderie. These are the things that porn pushes us away from. It isolates us. It basically, it defiles a lot of things that we hold sacred, like what our values are. It goes against those, in its very nature, in my opinion. And when you dig into these check-ins and you really put that energy in, you're going to get a lot out of it. And these check-ins can really save the day for you, because it gives you a chance to really put it out there, like how you're doing and like what your plan is to move forward. So I check in with my brother every day. We do that through voice memos. So we send voice memos to each other. I mean, typically we try to keep it like 5 to 10 minutes. Sometimes we get a little long on the tooth, and but it's not always just like so serious the way I'm putting it. Like, if you know the person well, definitely tell jokes and make each other laugh. It's a good way for us just to check in overall too with how things are going in life. And typically, we do it every day, and our goal is to do it sometime around the afternoon. So basically what I'm saying is, have a method. It could be a voice memo recording, it could be a phone call, it could be an email, it could be FaceTime, Zoom, in person, like something that you both feel comfortable with. And then, frequency, right? It doesn't have to be every day. It just really depends on, what works best for your schedule, what you think is valuable. I would say like, daily, or maybe every other day, or maybe certain like weekly. I would say I probably wouldn't go past like weekly. Maybe every other week would probably be the furthest I'd go, but like a check-in once a month. I just feel like a lot can happen in 1 month, and that'd just be too much to cover in one check-in. So you really, I would say daily is probably you're going to get the most out of if you're talking with the peer. I'd say mentor like once a week or once every other week. So typically with my mentor, we do like an actual like 60-minute meeting where we'll go through the course, and through that we'll also check in with each other. I'll typically text him too, or reach out to him, in between, with maybe if I'm struggling or if there's a big win. And then also have a therapist, and we also meet bi-weekly. And that's overall just goals that I have for life, but porn's a big part of that in recovery from it. So I'll also do a check-in with him as well. And similar, we don't do a fast check-in, but a lot of it's like rating how you're feeling, mentally, how you're feeling spiritually, how you're feeling physically. All that plays into recovery, and recovery plays into that. So if you take a holistic approach to this, that's really going to help you. So we got basically, who you want to pick as your accountability partner, how you can check in with each other, and also what times you can use. And, I would just say like, and this is just me, but if it starts to become an echo chamber where both of you are just talking about failing over and over again with no true actions, no true tools that you're going to be using, you're not even calling out threats, it's all past tense stuff, you might have to like reevaluate yourself and where you're at with your honesty. You might have to reevaluate the partner you're using, because you really shouldn't be stuck in a place of where you're just repeating over and over and over again. Typically that's either like a you problem, or it might be lopsided to where you're putting forth all this effort and then your partner's not really taking it seriously. And that can also kind of eat away a little bit at you and can drag you down. So I think that's just an important thing. And it's definitely a balance, like we all have our good days and bad days. But I think if it becomes like consistent to where you're not getting value out of it, then I would say, try to pair yourself up with somebody else. All right, team. So that's the overview of the FASTT Check-In. So, hopefully defining it as well as providing, tips on how to get started has been beneficial for you. Like I said, I've been on the road now since June, and it's been a big change of life for me. There's been some really high highs. I'd say the lows aren't as low, considering like kind of divorce and going through that, but definitely have had still some low moments to where I feel sad, I feel regret, I feel shame, I feel guilt. Those still creep up. Those feelings still come up. But I know that working through these and using these fast check-ins, it's been a lifeline, and I really do look forward to them. And I really wanted to share this with you because I think this is one of the most valuable tools that you can have in your tool belt. It really encapsulates recovery in such a great way, and you can really personalize it to work for yourself. So with that being said, I really appreciate all of you being on and listening. Please subscribe, hit the bell to get those notifications where I post. I hope I can do these with more frequency. I am heading back to Colorado. I hope to be there before the end of September, and I'll probably be there for a few months, so that'll be a little bit more downtime for me, I think, where I can work through this stuff a little bit more and build out some more content. Other than this podcast, I'd say a great other way that you can get more is by taking a look at my Substack at Porn Free Millennial. That's where I'll actually write out some articles. I actually did write out the fast check-in as well in article form. So if you want to look at that, that's a great resource that actually does have Vern's feeling wheel in there. It's in the article. And, you can definitely take that and use that in your check-ins and just hold that article as a reference point too. If you kind of forget the steps or forget where to go, it's a great place to go. So again, my Substack's Porn Free Millennial, and really hope that you have a great rest of your week. Let me know what you think about the podcast. If you have any ideas or any topics that you'd like me to discuss, leave that in the comments. If you'd like to leave a review as well, I'd love to hear any kind of feedback that you have, to improve the podcast or any other feedback that you have would be greatly appreciated. So until next time, keep fighting the good fight. Talk to you later. Porn Free Millennial.